We are recording.
All right, welcome everybody. This is apparently the second class today that we'll be talking a lot about the OBS software. The earlier class that Marguerite ran was on using it for virtual courts and big events like that. They used it yesterday for Atlanta Crowd Tournament. I'm going to be talking about applying it to classes like this. So in a moment, I'm going to switch to my slides. And because of the way I'm doing it, it's going to be pretending to be a webcam rather than sharing the screen. So it probably, on your screen, probably won't go to full screen. And if you want to watch it full screen, you can pin my webcam.
I did not hear which software this class was in reference to.
OBS, Open Broadcasting Software. We'll cover that. I'll give you a link and an icon and demonstrate it quite a bit more. Okay.
Thank you.
So if you do want to pin me, go up to my picture in the upper right. There's 3 dots. You can click on that and select pin, and that'll make me full screen for the purpose of this class. All right, so I'm going to switch to slides and get going. I'm Master Llwyd Aldrydd. I'm a Pelican and a Order Defense Defender. I'm from Atlanta, which is mundanely, or my barony is in Yorktown, Virginia. And that's my email address and websites. I run multiple websites for different parts of my interest. If you are interested in having a copy of this presentation, you can download it at the moment. Currently from baronlloyd.org, Lloyd spelled with a W. You do not need the summer of 2021 necessarily, because it is currently the top article. But 6 months from now, as I've added things, the summer 2021 will still. Somebody went to Tab High School. That's the next school over. I dated a Tab High School girl for a while. The summer 2021 will bring you to the article regardless of how far it's scrolled down and how much other stuff I've posted. There's also a web article version of this presentation, so it's just one long page with the discussion formatted a little bit differently. That's available at my Modern Technology site at that address. The class will only have a little bit of a live demo, so we may not use every slide. But during my test run, we determined that the font on the interface was too small to be readable when it was shared. So I ended up doing screen grabs and cropping to convey the information. And I think that'll work much better if you go back and read the slides later. I'm not sure exactly how Marguerite's earlier class, I think she was on a Mac, but her live demo worked really well and you could see what was going on. And I'm not sure what she was doing differently that I didn't figure out, but it worked for her and I couldn't get that part to work. So, and that's not critical. So I adapted. So this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to have an introduction on why you might want to do this. Then we're going to talk about collecting sources, talk about the software, the free video mixer OBS, talk about sharing your output. We'll talk about how to test it, and we'll talk about some optional, maybe less cheap bells and whistles. And then I have a page at the end that's collected links of all the things that I'm going to link to on all the slides in the middle. So we've been dealing with the COVID-19 era for a year and a half now, and the SCA has moved on to Zoom, Google Meet, WebEx, Teams, Discord, all of the different sharing platforms. And being able to switch quickly between a camera on the speaker, a close-up camera on a book or detailed work, if you're demonstrating bead making or necklace making or embroidery, and then presentation slides can improve your talk. And combining multiple sources into one can make the presentation more dynamic as you watch the speaker, a picture of the example, and demonstration technique all at the same time. You can certainly overdo that. That can get too busy. You need to use that selectively, but in the right places that can add a lot. So here's an example of what we will be able to do. We can have a slide. Here's a slide from one of my historic martial arts classes. that I teach. And then there's a webcam of me talking, and then I have a document camera focused on my printing of the manual itself, so that we can zoom in and look at what the actual picture is and the text as written originally. So all of those can add to the presentation. So the first stage of this is collecting sources. Look around and see what cameras you can find that you already own. You probably own at least one webcam if you're participating here today. It may be built into your laptop. It may be an external USB web camera. Early on in COVID, they got very expensive as everybody dove into doing online meetings. You couldn't get one for under $150. Now they're back down to the cheap ones are $11. I'll show you a link in one that for that in a moment. You can use cell phones. We have used several of our retired cell phones. They're old. And you may be able to use digital photo cameras, either modern SLRs, or it may be possible to use older generation digital cameras that shot video before we all switched to using cell phones to do that. So if you don't have enough cameras to do what you want to do, here's a couple of options for cheap USB web cameras. The camera that I am presenting on and that I am using for my microphone for this entire presentation cost $11 on Amazon. And that's pictured there. There's the link. And this is the picture from that webcam. It's pretty good. And then I also have a wider angle camera that I use for demonstrations where more width is needed, and that was about $25. And this is what that looks like. And that's convenient for me if I'm doing historic martial arts and I want to pick up my sword and talk about a stance or something. I can do that and have enough width if I'm careful, and don't hit things with my waster sword, to demonstrate and talk about and discuss what's going on. Most cell phones have excellent main cameras. Now that the main camera on your cell phone is on the back. Most cell phones will have a selfie camera on the front, on the screen side. That is typically lower resolution than the one on the back. And even retired cell phones can do a great job. So we've had a Pixel XL. I'm now using a Pixel 4, so 3 generations old, that had battery issues. But the camera and the phone work just fine. And then to use it, you need to search your app store. If it's an Apple, your Apple App Store, or if it's an Android, the Google App Store, to find webcam software. And the one that we chose was one called IVCam. It had the best ratings. I didn't try anything else. What IVCam did what I wanted, and it worked. The phone version part of the software is available for both Android and iOS, but the computer version of this part of the software is only available for Windows. So you will need a different program if you're going to use it on some other computer. That app is designed to make your cell phone look like a USB web camera so that other software can use it. One caveat that bit us when we first did this was your cell phone has a microphone on it. It has to be, because you want to use it as a telephone. And that microphone can cause feedback if it is not the only microphone that's active in your system. So do not enable it in the software unless this is going to be your main sound source. If you don't otherwise have a webcam and you're using it as your main webcam, then you do want to use the microphone. Some other possibilities, GoPro style cameras may be able to work in this application. Some digital SLRs. I have a nice Canon 80D, and I haven't been able to figure out how to use it for this application because its video out insists on overlaying all of the aperture and shutter speed and all the other settings over it. And there may be a way to turn that off. I just haven't dug into it enough in order to get a clean video signal. I do use that to record videos for my YouTube channel and other things, because obviously that when you're recording, that recording doesn't get that information. And there may be other video capable cameras you have around. I'm not going to cover how to connect those to your PC. You're going to have to research that yourself, both cables and software-wise, in order to get that to work for you, but they are certainly worth pursuing. So mounting your cameras, most cameras are designed to be placed on top of your monitor. Other flat surfaces can work. Some web cameras will have a tripod screw mount option, so you can put it on a little or a large tripod. The $11 camera I'm demonstrating does not. The $25 camera does. If that is important to you, you might want to include that in your parameters when you're looking to buy something. Another mounting option is this articulating lamp-like arm. It was $28 on Amazon. It comes with both a tripod screw and a cell phone clamp. I'll show you it in a minute. You can see a picture on the right of our Pixel XL in the clamp, focusing down on some seeds that my wife was teaching a seed collecting class. You may note the white paper that she's using as a background has been folded to quarters, and that's so that she can mark the center of the display area, and she can hold her hands in the right spot when she is demonstrating to be picked up in the camera. The camera can face down to serve as a demo or a document camera, but make sure you're using your main camera and not your selfie camera, and that adjusts very easily. So I will show you. This is an image from my cell phone. It's focusing on my white scarf, and I can reach over and I can pick up the white scarf and I can move it around. And if we were actually doing a class about machine embroidery, I could explain how I did this and how I designed this and why the different sections that are made of the same exact thread look different because of the direction of the stitching. And if it mattered, I could move back or move closer and adjust, the cell phone very easily, and it stays in focus. I don't have to adjust it. I can focus it on whatever I want. So here's my setup that I'm sitting at the moment. I have a cell phone on that stand, looking at my white scarf. I have a second computer that I don't have a camera hooked up to, that I'm using to monitor what I'm transmitting, and looking over that shows me that I screwed up and didn't switch my source back. So that's time one for doing that, and I will probably do that a couple more times. And then you can see where my wide camera is mounted, my main camera, where my Stream Deck is, which we'll talk about in a moment, and where my presenting computer is. So now I'm going to pick up my main camera and pan it around and show you the same information. If you get seasick, you may want to close your eyes while I'm doing that. It is going to shift a little unsmoothly. So here's the web camera. I'm going to pick it up. Carefully not putting my fingers on the microphone because that makes things pop. So there's the cell phone and the stand, and I have a lamp pointing at my source that I'm using with the document camera. Sometimes I put a book under there. My wife has done seeds, and then over to the right I have my second computer where I'm monitoring what I'm doing, and on top of that is my wide camera. It's set further back to get a wider field of view, and the lens on that camera is actually slightly wider. I have my button box that I'll talk about in a moment, and then the main computer where I'm projecting, where I'm sharing and participating. I'm going to put the webcam back. That's the only time we're going to do this, and hopefully that's still focused. All right, let me switch back to my PowerPoint. So how am I doing that? This is the software I'm using. It's called OBS. It's Open Broadcaster Software. It's also called OBS Studio. It is free. It costs nothing. It is available for Windows, Mac, and Linux, and it's available from obsproject.com. Do you need to have two computers to be able to create online content? Is one of the questions. No, you don't. It makes things a little bit easier, but it's really just to keep me from making mistakes and getting, you know, leaving it on webcam when I was demonstrating something and talking to a slide that you can't see. So I've already done that once, and I expect I will do it at least one more time. But it just helps. I think it helps to be logged in twice so you can see what the students are seeing in addition to what you're trying to present. There is a similar program to OBS called Streamlabs OBS. It is using the same code, but they've added some additional stuff. It is commercial, and it has additional features for streaming to Twitch or YouTube. So if you want to use that, a lot of what we're going to talk about is still going to apply, but just be aware which one you're getting when you go and look for it. And so you don't end up with something that's not doing exactly what you thought it was. So what does OBS do? Primarily, it mixes and switches between a huge variety of inputs with a single, and then I need to update this. I learned something this morning. With an add-on, it masquerades as a single webcam for output, or you can stream to Twitch or YouTube.
We lost your audio.
Is this working?
Yes.
All right. That is my backup. I'm now on the wide camera's microphone. Just because I have two webcams attached, I can switch to the other one. I don't know what glitched. It wouldn't let me switch back, so something went wrong. I think the camera itself is still working. Yeah, we still have video. But all right. So we will continue, and hopefully sound will be as good with a microphone that's a little bit further away from me. Anyways, you have a wide variety of different kinds of devices and inputs you can use, from cameras to microphones to your whole screen to part of your screen to a movie file to a single image, all kinds of things like that. And you can even combine scenes within scenes. So it's pretty powerful in what you're able to mix together. So this is what OBS looks like. I was initially going to do a live demo, but I couldn't get the details down at the bottom. That text would never be sharp enough from the student's point of view. So we switched and are doing it with screen grabs now. So the big picture is your current output. The first window is your scenes. I'll define those in a moment. Second window is your sources. The third window is your sound mixer, and then the right two columns are your settings. So nomenclature. A source is a video or audio source. It could be a camera. It could be a computer window, a video file, slideshow, anything that was on that first list of items. And a scene is a combination of one or more sources. So here are some examples of scenes. You can combine any number of sources. You can overlap them. You can size them differently. You can move them around. You can even move them around live. So, you know, here's a combination of my webcam and the slide, and I can move this around, and I can change the size, and I can do all kinds of things. I probably don't want to do this very often live for several reasons. It's distracting, and I'm covering over my material, but there might be reasons where, you know, I'm talking and I want to hold something up and it needs to be bigger. So that's certainly possible to do. And let's go back to slides to the right thing I want. All right. You want to use these in a limited amount, but they certainly have their application. One of the ones that we talked about this morning was perhaps inserting a silent herald in a small window over a video of a court or other event. So that would be an application where it would make sense to have a picture-in-picture like this for a longer period. So the first thing you need to do is create a scene, and that's the lower left window, and this is what it looks like with some of my scenes set in it. You click on the plus button on the lower left to create a new one. You give your new scene a name. You can rename it later. Eventually, you want a useful descriptive name so that when you're trying to switch between them, it means something. So I have webcam, I have PowerPoint and webcam, those kinds of things, and screen share. And then once you've set up a scene, you have to add sources to it. Click the plus button on the source window and add a source to the scene. For your webcam, select a video capture device and then point it at your particular device. If you have more than one, you need to select the right web camera, give that source a name and configure it to point at the desired camera, repeat as desired. There are a bunch of things that you can tweak in your web camera. You can change its frame rate, its resolution. Depending on your camera, you may be able to adjust the brightness and contrast. All those things are possible, and you set those up as part of your source. If you want to add a window on your computer or a monitor, you set up to add your complete display. You do display capture as your source type, and that's what this looks like. So this is my current display. You can see all my desktop icons and the Zoom meeting behind, and OBS and my slides, all of which are overlapping. Or to add a window, just choose window capture. And that's what I'm using for this PowerPoint presentation. Even though it's in presentation mode, I'm presenting it in a window to make it easier for me to operate and switch between windows. You arrange and size your sources. Once you've selected them all, you can turn them on and off with that eye icon that I'm pointing to with the arrow. The up and down arrows at the bottom can be used to sort the order, and that determines what's on top of what and what's behind what. And then you can move up in the main window, as I demonstrated earlier, and resize and rearrange things to your heart's content. So here's a PowerPoint sharing tip. You can present in a window rather than having it take over your whole screen, and that's hidden in the menus, but it's under slideshow, then set up slideshow, and then select browse by an individual parentheses window. And you need to save that. And that's saved with this particular slideshow. If you open a different set of slides, it'll go to full screen by default, and you'll need to set it for every slideshow that you want to do that to. And I think that makes it easier for this kind of presentation. And the earlier question that, did you need two computers? It makes it easier to operate and function with one computer and one monitor. And then once you have it set up as a window, when you hit F5 or the projector icon, it will start in that window rather than a full screen. And then within OBS, you need to define a source that is a window capture and tell it to choose the PowerPoint window. And because I have it set to choose a PowerPoint window, and then the priority there says match title, otherwise find window of the same type, it will grab any PowerPoint window, regardless of what I'm presenting. So I can go between my book club presentations to this class, to my website class, and I don't have to reconfigure things. It'll find the PowerPoint window and it'll work just fine. And then resize and position it within OBS as desired to make it fit the full screen. And I could make this a little bit bigger, and the borders at the top and bottom would go away if I made it a little bit bigger. Quick audio tip. This doesn't matter if you're doing what I'm doing and just using the microphone on your webcam, but if you are using multiple audio sources, you can mix them and combine them please make sure that you turn off, you mute the sources of things that you don't care about. By default, everything, all of your webcams will have a microphone. And if you turn on multiples or turn on multiple sets of speakers, you can get feedback very easily. Each of those sources will get added to the audio mix. You can set different volume levels. To start with, mute all but your main camera. So I set up scenes for each desired video source by itself, so I can switch between them without any overlapping. I set up a few combined scenes and carefully size and position each source so as to not to interfere with the others. I set up a scene to share my full screen so I can pull up any other arbitrary source. If we're talking and you say, can you show me the Amazon page for that webcam? I can go to that, and then I can go full screen and we can look at that. I don't have to set up a browser share as a source. And then you switch the current scene by clicking on the scene name in the scene window. So I have one of the ones that I set up. There's 3 sources, so that's my 2 webcams and the document camera turned on at the same time. And here's 4 sources, so I have 2 webcams, the document camera, and the slides all set up at the same time. Obviously, that's busy, and you don't want to do that very often, but it's certainly possible to do. And I can move things around and overlap and reorder and do things on the fly as I want. So I'm going to go back to PowerPoint here. And then the final thing you need to do is set it up to use it in a virtual meeting to be able to do this. When I started researching this a little more than a year ago, you required an external plugin that you got from that link that I gave there. But I learned this morning that it is now built into the functionality of OBS, and you don't need the plugin. You can just turn it on with a button. So I haven't played with that yet because I didn't want to change something that I knew was working an hour before I was teaching. But I think that will make it easier for you, and I will play with it before I teach my next class. And that tells and then you need to tell your meeting software to use the virtual OBS as your webcam. So you go into Zoom or Meet or whatever and configure your camera to be OBS virtual camera, and you'll be good to go. And that's what I'm doing. You do not need to share your screen if you do that. It will act as if it's a web camera, and you'll see me on a grid as if it were my web camera. All right. Am I echoing? Switching to the second camera may have caused me to start echoing.
You are not echoing. I'm hearing someone else talking that isn't you.
All right. My son is downstairs behind me, and I can lightly hear him when he's playing his video game. So that's probably what you're hearing. I'm not hearing anything else. So other than, you when you commented. All right, let me get back to where I was. So that's how you set it up. The next thing is to test your setup. Before teaching, using your cool new setup, try it, practice with it. Set up a test meeting using the target meeting software where it's just you and a friend. Connect to that meeting with both your presentation computer and a different student device. Ask a friend if you only have one machine. And practice switching sources, check for sound feedback, lighting, or other issues. Fix your problems. Practice until you get it right. I did a test teach on this class Thursday and learned a couple of things that weren't working well, and I didn't do those again. So hopefully it has come out more smoother this time. Important safety tip. Check your computer windows, icons, browser windows, camera background to verify that you're only sharing what you want to. Y'all commented early on that I had a large safety pin in my background. I'm okay with that, but it could have been, my teenage son walking across the screen from the shower. It could have been, something that I didn't want you to see. My browser that I've popped up every once in a while could have, bank information or medical stuff or proprietary work information. I know I've seen more than one celebrity and politician post to Twitter some screen grab of something they wanted to talk about, and you could see one of the tabs was something embarrassing or something that they shouldn't have shared. Close those down, double check before you start sharing your information across the internet. All right, now my other son is being a little loud. While you're presenting, log in a few minutes early to check that you have everything connected and running right. I don't leave everything set up all the time for the studio setup. I use the computers for other things. Recheck your open windows, your VPN settings if you're running one, your volumes. If you have a friend with a separate computer to admit students, watch the chat. Otherwise, run things while you teach. That can help. Thankfully for this event, we have moderators that are doing a great job and taking care of us. But a lot of the time, that's not an option, and you have to supply your own moderator or do it yourself. Almost as good as to log into the meeting on a second computer to be able to do those functions without having to exit your presentation. And if y'all have noticed, there's a second Llwyd window, and that's me as a student, just so I can watch what's going on and catch myself when I do something stupid. So optional, less cheap bells and whistles. Marguerite this morning talked about this, and I'm going to talk about it again. The Elgato Stream Deck connects trivially with OBS and makes scene switching quick and easy without having to have the OBS controls screen on top. The LCD image on each of the buttons is customizable, so I went out and found a picture of a stage that I liked on the internet, and I dropped it in as my button for my document camera. So that makes it easier for me or my wife when she's presenting her classes to know which button to press to bring up which source. They are available on Amazon. I checked this morning. Amazon only has the 15 button model at the moment. The 6 button model, which is what I have, and I will hold up here in front of the webcam. This is the 6 button model, and that's what's pictured there. Does most of what I need, does everything I need. I don't need anything fancier. Is not currently available at Amazon, but is available at Target for $80. And in fact, Target's website shows it available at one of my local stores for me to walk in and buy off the shelf if I wanted to. So these are fairly widely available, and you can get a discount on them sometimes, and they really are pretty helpful, but they are optional. You do not need them in order to do this. They just make it a little smoother. It is really easy to map a button to an OBS scene. You can download custom art or create it on your own. It directly supports OBS Studio built-in software out of the box. And one of the things that I learned this morning is you can not only switch scenes, but you can turn sources on and off. So those overlapping scenes that I did, I could actually implement as one scene and then have a different button that turned the second camera on and off, or the PowerPoint on and off, depending on what I wanted to do. And that makes Chiron overlays, like your text, your name across the bottom, fairly much easier to implement than the way I've been doing things. So there's a lot of power here that it's going to take you a little while to learn and to experiment with, but it's really very nice and works very well. And it has helped. My wife is an artist, and she is a little less tech savvy than I am as an engineer. And she has adapted to using the buttons very easily. She likes it. It makes it much easier to use for her than trying to click on text in the OBS software window. So that's the end of the presentation. My last slide is all of the links that I provided in here. Again, you can download these slides from baronlloyd.org, Lloyd spelled with a W, so that you have them. And then in the near future, this recorded class will be on Kaid's YouTube channel once they post it in a few days or a week. I'm not sure how quick. And you can watch it and get that information again. So that's my prepared presentation. And we have some time. We can have some questions. I can demo some other stuff if people want. Whatever you would like. Bring up Zoom for my own self.
And this software works well with video sources. Like if you wanted to say, play a piece of music or a video of a fight.
Yeah, Marguerite this morning demonstrated what they were using for court, and they had some videos that they had preset that had SCA music behind them, and just a title slide that said, you know, court is starting soon, or Crown Tournament is starting soon, and you know, had that playing, and then she could, you know, drop in a subtitle that gave the names of the combatants that you were looking at, and she could edit that on the fly and change that. So it's really, you can pre-configure an awful lot of stuff, and you should, but you can also change things on the fly as you need to. And it integrates very easily with all of your other regular tools you're used to using. So if you're creating artwork in Photoshop or Photoshop Elements or some other tool, you know, all of that works. You know, it's the second you save your updated image, it gets updated and goes out live. And you can also use this non-live. There's a recording function so that you can make your own videos that you then later edit and upload to YouTube or whatever, and get the same functionality. So all kinds of applications. And
Very
most
cool.
of it's free.
Can this stream to Facebook?
Yes. Yes, and in fact, that some of that streaming functionality is built in. There's a start streaming button over on the controls. I have not played with that. Marguerite earlier in the court class, which if you're interested in, I recommend you go and watch her video once that's posted. Did a good job explaining how to set up streaming to Facebook and YouTube, and I forget what else she was streaming to. But
Yeah, I missed her class. I got the last like 10 minutes of it, and she had already done that. So I'll go back and watch that. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a good class. Her OBS discussion only barely overlaps mine. So we were interested in different things and presented different things. So I think they're compatible and worthwhile using both. Anybody else with a question? So I know I have seen friends give, our local barony has a very active ANS program that meets weekly, and we've done a good job of keeping it going during COVID with some struggles, but it's functioned. And some friends have tried to do demonstrations using their webcams and have had a lot of trouble with that, getting the details framed and in focus and those kinds of things. And I think this approach has worked much better than many of the things that they were trying. So I encourage you to play with this for that kind of application. All right, I think we probably can stop recording if that's the end of the questions, and we can just go to free chat for the remainder of our hour.
Ida, did you have a question? I saw you were unmuting there for a second.
Well, I was just going to say, I didn't really have a specific question. I just wanted to thank you for presenting such a dynamic thing. It has opened our world of all of the different kinds of cool things that we could do. And that idea, I thought of you actually, Brianna and Nico, with the inset for, you know, the Silent Herald at court would be amazing to be able to do. So I just wanted to thank you for sharing your knowledge with us.
I think it also has a lot of bardic possibilities.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. You know, if you want to do a sing along, you could have the words in a window scrolling as you performed. You know, so everybody could participate.
Baronial karaoke.
All right, thank you very much. I am going to go ahead and stop the recording.